talking today about holiday parties, and these are both holiday parties sponsored by the company or holiday parties by a co-worker outside of the company. What happens outside of the company as an employee will can affect your job. So if you do something on Saturday that affects your relationship with a co-employee, you might find out on Monday you're out of a job because you're an employee at will and you don't have a protected right to act out in regards to something. If in your, and by way of example on this, I'm talking about you drink too much and you start swearing at the person, you call them some names, perhaps because you don't like their political views. And it's not just you and her talking about or him talking about a political, your position, your relative positions, and I do recommend you stay away from that with your co-employees. I strongly recommend you stay away from talking about politics with your co-employees, because if you find out you're of a different view on this, it might affect your team cohesiveness, and you want to stay away from that. So I would strongly recommend that. But if you're outside of the company and you're talking about politics, and then you start telling them that their views are stupid because they support Biden or they support Trump or they support the Israelis or the Palestinians in the Gaza conflict, and you have a strong feeling of that and you express that in a negative view to their beliefs, you could be out of a job. You don't have job protection there, and you would be mistaken to think that that's freedom of speech because you express your opinion to a coworker that affected their cohesiveness with the team. Well, you do have freedom of speech for both in the workplace and in the outside the workplace. Talking about this is what's called concerted activity, talking about your work. You can talk to co-employees generally under the National Labor Relations Act, which is a federal law that applies equally to union and non-union shops on this particular issue, about your boss, about why you think your boss is ineffective, why you think you're getting paid too less versus competitors, why somebody else is getting overtime versus others. You might want to really carefully think about that as to if you're trying to move up the company ladder as to the effect of that, because while they're not supposed to take any adverse employment actions against you, if the boss finds that out, it may be in the back of the mind when they're looking about you or somebody else as to which one to promote to supervisor. So you want to think about that. What's legal and what's appropriate are two different things. So you want to consider that as to, is it always in the back of the boss's mind when they're looking at you for promotion? It might be. So you want to be considering of that. But you can talk about that. Second thing, if you're drinking or you're doing anything else at the company sponsored or co-employees party, and you sexually assault somebody, or you are so aggressive as to wanting to go out on a date with them, you make them uncomfortable. That type of sexual harassment, while even if it's outside of the workplace, can be a cause for the employer to say you're no longer employed here because you're affecting the cohesiveness of the team. Even though it happened on a Saturday night off the workplace at a co-employees party, it can affect you on Monday morning. So be careful about that. In the workplace itself, whether that's a holiday party or otherwise, you do not have freedom of speech to talk about politics. People think that they do because why? Of course, that should be part of the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, generally, the constitutional freedom of speech is the government's inability to affect your speech. So the government can't go and set up rules, certain types of rules that will affect your speech. Your private employer can. Public employers have a different, a gray area, and they get more protections as a public employee. But your general job, if you're working in a law firm, you're working at the local cafe, you're a private employee there, absent there being a union agreement that says otherwise, which I doubt there would be, you can't talk about, if you're talking about why you think Biden is great or Trump is great, or why the Israelis are right and the Palestinians are wrong, or the Russians are right or the Ukrainians are wrong, and that all the political conflicts are going on and now in 2023. If you get into that engaged conversation, you might find that your employer doesn't like the situation, and while generally they're going to allow some speech to happen, if you're affecting the cohesiveness of the team, you might be in trouble. And then also, if you had a boss that was staunchly against your political view, there's not something that says that they can't fire you for that, as an employee will. So be very careful about that. Do not cross that line just because you want to say what you think. You don't have to, everything that you think about, you don't have to say. So I strongly recommend you consider that you don't have generally freedom of speech other than work-related issues in the workplace. If you have questions, contact me. I'm Dan Marr. I've been here at Hamlet Kerrigan for 35 years. You can call me at 603-883-5501, 603-883-5501, or you can check out our website and check out myself and a variety of the other excellent attorneys here at hamker.com. That's hamker.com. Look forward to the opportunity to talk to you if the opportunity does arise. Thank you.